Welcome to another episode of the Sons of Haddonfield. As always, I'm Ian.
I'm Josh.
We have a special guest with us today because it's February, which means it's Women in Horror Month.
Yeah, that's exciting.
It is.
You've probably heard me talk about it if you've seen the other videos. This is Nicole. She's my wife.
Hi.
We thought it would be good if we're going to talk about women in horror and
We thought it would be nice to have a
female perspective on the subject, because we'll talk some about feminism and how that plays a part into horror movies and other types of genres as well.
And how it's evolved over the years.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's evolved some since, the 1930s and 40s. What are your, opening thoughts when you hear somebody say feminism and horror movies don't go together, or that they do go together? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends on the director and the angle that they're wanting to take, because it can be a positive thing, but it can also be a huge step back for women, depending on the viewer and what the director is trying to accomplish.
Okay.
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer.
Do you have anything to add to it?
It's evolved over the years.
It has.
That's my biggest philosophy.
Okay. What is that?
Observations. Moving
Easy,
forward.
gentlemen, easy.
So if you think about slasher movies, they always have the final girl, and I know you want to touch on that here in a little bit. But let's talk about some of the problems that I feel like are still there today, even modern slasher movies, and hasn't really changed a lot. Is the problems that it has with it is kind of the slut shaming, and what's the typical final girl? Scream addressed it in the 90s.
Yeah, that they're,
they're pure,
Pure,
they don't do drugs, they're virgins, they don't drink alcohol.
if you have sex, you die.
You die immediately, right? You have to be completely covered up. You can't wear anything,
Scandalous.
Yeah, anything
Scantily
daring.
clad.
And if you do, those characters that do the drugs or dress
Alcohol party.
scandalously, whatever, those are usually killed off really early. What kind of example does that set?
Not to do drugs and be a slut? Or is that supposed to be acceptable?
No,
I'm trying to understand the question, because I feel like you already answered it. Don't be a
no,
slut.
don't do drugs.
Just
Yeah,
kidding.
that's not good. But it's okay.
Scream did address it with Neve Campbell playing Sydney. She was one of the first female characters to survive breaking that mold.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think you're right, because if you think about my favorite, which is why I'm wearing this shirt today, the Halloween series, right? So, Laurie Strode was very much so that book smart, gonna babysit on Halloween, not go party and have sex and try to get someone else to watch the kid. All of those things played out, and she was the survivor. Now, it's definitely a little bit different when you look at who actually survives and why they survive, but I think that's also kind of the fun of a horror movie when you look at it, is you always root for that girl, because it's the girl that always kind of falls by the wayside and hides in the shadows, and that's somebody that a lot of strong women can identify with, because that's the persona they have to overcome, because they're not looked at the same as someone that is wearing scantily clad clothing or gets that attention. So it's kind of that girl coming out on top. So if you look at it on the flip side, that it's not about what they wear, and it's not about that, it's about the intellect that always falls by the wayside. So I think it actually brings that to light, that we're missing a whole group of women that are strong and are powerful.
So you think by doing it how they've been doing it, you're still addressing it, kind of?
Yeah, because if you think about it, what was popular in the 70s? Let's dress like hooches and get high and drunk, right? I said hooches.
I don't know what a hooch is. I don't know if I'm old enough to understand that.
Let's show our skin and our body and whatever for the attention. That was the time. But then there's the women that don't do that, and they're usually the ones that aren't looked at for survival and aren't paid attention to and whatever, but they seem to always be the ones that come out on top, that value different things. So I think if you look at it as not the superficial front, okay, you are running down the thing with your big fake boobs, running up the stairs because you're a moron away from this dude with the knife that clearly, what are you gonna do, jump out the window and die? Either way, you're dead, right? Versus the girl that maybe doesn't have the big fake boobs and whatever and is like gonna call the cops and then get in her car and drive the heck away from the guy, right? Like, you forget the intellect part of it.
But isn't the girl with the big fake boobs just as smart as the other girls? Or I think we're sending kind of a mixed message there, that you have to be this way to be smart enough to survive something like this.
No, not necessarily, because I think what happens is what was okay then, and because we're talking about back then, right?
I'm talking about,
So for me, when you
70s,
think about
60s
it,
to present.
well, yes. So just like now, if you look at women like Lizzo, who are not tiny little girls, right? She's very empowering. She shows off her skin. She does all of that.
But typically,
does that matter? No.
in horror movie standards, she would die immediately.
Would she?
The old
By
movie
the
standards.
old movie tropes
but
in
if
horror
you,
movies.
But right. So what I'm saying is, back then, the girl that didn't show off her skin and didn't get the attention and all of that was literally the last person thought of. And I think that's why they did it that way. It was the girl you least expected to do anything and come out on top because nobody's paying attention to her.
I get that.
Now, what you see is women that normally wouldn't be the ones that have the big fake boobs and are running down the street and whatever, are the women that are empowering us and are now dressing like that. So now you get both because we're confident with who we are and with the way we look.
That's why we have you on the show tonight. Female perspective. Nailed that. Very nicely done.
You're welcome. I try.
So yeah, that kind of goes. The other thing I was going to say about the problems is kind of the thing that we were addressing is how, not just how you dress or the actions that you do, but that girl is the only one considered to be worth saving and to worth surviving at the end. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I think everyone should survive and no one should be murdered.
That would be a fun horror movie.
Everybody
survives and lives happily ever
We
after.
all dismember the bad guy.
Yep.
Like,
5-minute horror movie. Guy comes in with a knife, everyone kills him. Movie over!
And then it repeats.
Celebrate! Oh, that's Happy Death Day.
I know. One of my favorites.
we just get new ways to kill
They
them.
keep getting killed over and over and over again until you figure out how to live by some repetitiveness.
So I think a lot of the decisions that people make lead to how they die, right? So even now, you're killed in a horror movie because of the decisions you made, because you weren't outwitting the killer. You weren't critically thinking. Just like in Happy Death Day, she has to go back and do it over and over and over again to try to figure it out. You don't get those chances in real life.
How smart, let's just throw Friday the 13th, okay? How smart are you saying is Jason Voorhees? Because, a lot of people cannot outsmart him.
He's probably pretty smart.
I know, because Jason Voorhees doesn't strike me as a Harvard grad with a PhD type,
Well, no, because he died before he could go to college.
Exactly.
But he does have his brute strength and
Exactly.
and no one can, his resiliency, his relentless, unstoppable force coming at you, and you gotta run faster. And
Seems like if you just
figure
use
out
your
how to
mind
drown
at
him.
all, you'd be able to survive that. I don't know.
So you would think so. But at the same time, all of those slasher killers actually don't just embody a dude with a knife. They embody your fear. And so they're going to push that to the limit. And when you're in that situation where you're just blinded by fear, it's an emotional reaction. It's not really a logical reaction that you're having to that. So being chased around by a dude that to me would feel like he's 8 feet tall with a giant machete chasing me down, 4 steps of mine is one long stride for him. So I'm going to run twice as fast. I'm going to try to do all those things. But at the same time, I'm fearful for my life because I have a lot to lose. So I could very well trip on a freaking branch and I'm done.
That's usually how
I'm
people
done.
die.
Exactly.
They trip and fall.
Tripping over nothing.
But I think that's it. Fear takes over at a certain point. And then if you're not strong enough to overcome that fear, you're going to die.
Which brings me to another character that embodies fear, Freddy Krueger. He's what you fear the most.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, in order to face your fear, you have to realize your inner worth. That's like the moral of the story. of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm.
And like that whole movie is just a dream of her fear and driving off into the future with the fear close behind.
Speaking of Nightmare on Elm Street, I know you want to talk about the final girl and what that means and what that embodies.
Well, like you were discussing earlier, the final girl was the one that usually survives, for all the reasons mentioned. Heather Langenkamp from that movie, she feels like the final girl is like sexist because it leaves out men, although men don't necessarily need all that, empowerment, because they've been up here when it should be on an even playing field.
Mm-hmm.
She thinks it shouldn't be called the final girl, it should be called the final teenager, because like she feels like that guys and girls should be able to feel like they can survive anything. That's her philosophy on it.
And how do you feel about
So
that?
this is probably gonna just make you all irritated, but I really hate the word teenager because I am a grown-ass woman, and at the end of the day, if I'm gonna survive a horror movie, I don't care what my age is. I really don't care what sex I am. But if I survive and you two die, you darn right better be like, yeah, final girl, because y'all suck and you died. But it's also like a celebration, right? Because back then, it was typical that the woman was in the kitchen and she was just a sex object, or she didn't have all of these things that women do now, right? That all of those women fought for us. So to say that it should be the final teenager in that era and in that time space is not really empowering at all to women. It's taking a huge step backwards because we're trying to create that equal playing field by celebrating what women do. And if you take the movies at face value, that's what they're about. They're about taking that girl that is always overlooked and showcasing her ability to overcome. Unfortunately, dudes aren't always overlooked.
Oh, I'm not saying...
But when they are, maybe at the end of the day, Tommy shouldn't have died. Tommy, what's the guy in The Ghost?
The guy in the ghost?
Yeah, Bob.
Oh, from Halloween.
Maybe Bob shouldn't have died.
Oh, he did.
I don't know. But Bob drank and had some sex. And then Michael Myers stole his glasses and a sheet. So everybody died at the end of the day, but maybe he shouldn't have. Those characters aren't developed enough for us to know for sure. That's
Good point.
my thought.
Good point. Good point from both of you. I feel like the
I don't like ageism either.
the
so.
narrator here. I don't know.
Like, it wasn't
I'm just like
my...
randomly asking you
I know.
guys things.
I think it's a good point though, because
Yeah.
as women, we don't want to be better than. We want to be equal to. And if you want to be better than, then get off the feminism track. I'm gonna push you off the shit to begin with, because it's about equality, right? Like, I don't want to make you guys feel less than a person because of me, and just because I'm a girl.
You yell at me a
that's
lot,
dumb.
though.
We're still equal, Sunny. I love you.
I just thought it was an interesting viewpoint from a female actress from that era.
Mm-hmm. I think she's probably, and I'm totally speculating, but you're probably inundated all the time with what does a final girl mean to you and all of that. And she's probably like, I'm so sick of hearing this question,
Yeah.
when really it's about the person that survives this critical situation where they're faced with fear and they come out on top. When really, let's be honest, did Laurie Strode come out on top? Because if you saw the most recent Halloween, she was looked at as she was straight up insane by everyone, straight down to her child.
Mm-hmm.
And it still came down to her believing that to her core and alienating herself and doing all of those things. So even though you survive, you are broken AF.
True.
Broken.
Let's talk about some movies and
This is not good for me.
what we think of them and their role that they played in the feminism movement. I guess you said earlier that back then, it was you were supposed to be in the kitchen cooking and blah 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 that
Yeah,
stuff.
that ain't happening
What about?
now. No, sorry, honey.
It's okay. I like to cook. It's okay. What about movies like The Stepford Wives? Why were they effective?
So The Stepford Wives, I think, is an amazing movie. One, because it, and I don't want to get political, but it does what the presidency has done, and it shows the side of people that no one really wants to admit, and so it has to be kept secret, right? Like this perfect cookie cutter wife that we really want deep down inside, and bastards have to struggle to get that, right? I love that it takes this person who is a very successful woman and does all of these things and has these pride, and a very broken, lacking confidence man, right? They move to this place and he's like, oh, I can make her the perfect wife. And then it backfires and blows up in his face. Like, duh. It's gonna blow up in your face, moron. Stop trying to change who we are.
Hopefully it would backfire.
But it was all very secretive and kept quiet because it's not acceptable anymore. And I think it was a good, like, step forward and showcasing that those things do exist, but they usually crumble.
Anything about the Stepford Wives?
There was a remake, and I saw the remake.
How was the remake? I haven't seen that one.
It's been a while, but I enjoyed
Was there
it.
really a remake? I
Yeah,
didn't
Nicole
realize.
Kidman.
Yeah,
Nicole
Oh.
Kidman.
and
was
some
in it.
I do
other
love Nicole Kidman.
well-known actresses. I don't know off the top of my head
Oh,
who
yes,
they are.
the remake. Duh. I'm back.
It was good. Wasn't a horror movie.
No.
No, it was more
That's
like
fine.
a comedy,
Yeah,
kind of,
Well,
wasn't it?
Yeah,
Like
something.
a sci-fi
I
comedy.
I
I don't
don't
know.
remember enough about it
Mhm.
to like formulate a good thesis and dissect it, but I remember I saw it, and
You saw that
that's
movie.
along those lines.
Good
Yeah,
job.
Nicole Kidman is amazing. I
Yeah.
just remember like her sleek, short, blonde hair and
And
like
they're-
her black outfit and her like I'm business and I'm gonna get this done mentality. She had a very like masculinity about her, and her husband's like all uber
And then
feminine.
when the guys find out that they're like robots or cookie cutter,
Mhm.
makeshift models, they kind of freak out a little bit. They're like, "Oh no, crap! What do we do?" That's pretty much all I remember about it, and then like backfires on them.
It's pretty funny.
What about like movies, the revenge type movies like Last House on the Left, I Spit on Your Grave, movies like that? What kind of role do you think they played?
Killing my soul with their content.
Like those are
Yeah,
hard to
those,
watch.
Those are
Yeah.
tough to get through.
So you know me, I hate
But at the end of the
movies.
day, the payoff
Sometimes.
is good.
Sometimes.
But still, you have to subject yourself to that trauma and witnessing that horror on film, and it gets in your psyche, and you're like, oh,
Off-
you're cringeworthy.
Off topic for a second, is I Spit on Your Grave's tagline the best ever? To avoid fainting, keep repeating, it's only a movie, it's only a movie, it's only a movie.
The original, yeah.
That's awesome. I love that
is it-
tagline so
So,
much.
So I have to tell you a real brief story. So I lived by myself, okay? Little apartment, me and my dog, no big deal, we're fine. Okay, I'm like, I'm a strong, independent lady, I can do this, right? My mother recommended that I watch this movie. She's like, oh yeah, it's a really good movie, you'll like it.
What movie?
Last House on the
Last House
Left.
on the Left.
What we're talking about.
Like the original
Oh, we're
one.
talking about two.
Okay, and so I'm just like, okay, yeah. So I went to Blockbuster because Blockbuster was a thing because I'm old. So I went to
R.I.P.
Blockbuster,
Blockbuster.
and I picked up this movie, and I'm like, cool. I got my popcorn, I got my movie. By myself, I watched the original. Literally halfway through, I went, this is effed up. Because we are listening to like happy flower child music and things are great, and this poor girl is being raped, and you're subjecting yourself to this horrible mixed emotion because the music is just not even close to the tone that it should be. And so I was happy that the remake did not do that, because literally that crap stuck with me for a good month. Like I slept with every light on in my house. I double checked my locks like 6 times. Like the neighbor upstairs always creeped me out, and so I was like extra watching him all the time. Like, dude, don't get anywhere near me, I will stab you. But like all of that stuff. But the revenge part of it, and then of course I yelled at my mother. I'm like, why would you ever recommend 20-year-old me to watch
I can't
this?
imagine your mom sitting through that movie.
She watched it when it first came out because she's old.
Oh, okay. In
yeah,
theaters.
like in theaters when
Oh.
it first came out. And I mean, she went and she likes horror movies as much as she says she doesn't. As long as the lights are on, she's good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think those types of movies, because if you think about, okay, so the horror revenge, so Last House on the Left, I Spit on Your Grave, those. But then there's also movies like Enough with Jennifer Lopez, where it is a revenge movie.
I don't think
It's-
I've seen that movie.
It's about domestic
Yeah,
violence.
It's about
and
domestic violence.
She learns how to box and
Yeah.
then goes back and kicks her husband or ex-husband's ass.
Murders him. Because no one would do anything to help her. And so she kept finding herself in this terrible situation. And so she's like, fine, I'm going to act like you're your perfect little wife and let you beat on me until I'm strong enough. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to kick your ass.
Why have I not seen this Jennifer Lopez movie, but I've seen Jiggly, whatever. What is the name of that movie?
Geely? I haven't seen that one either.
That's like the worst movie ever made I've seen, but I haven't seen this movie. That actually sounds good.
She learns how to fight and defend
Yeah.
herself, and then I don't remember if it's her ex-husband or if she's trying to get away from
She's trying to get away
yeah,
from him.
because
Mhm.
because he's a
And
psychopath.
so she finally like murders him in his house, and then she moves on with her life and just escapes him there.
Because she's able to like
Because like even the
Con-
cops wouldn't do anything,
yeah,
right?
yeah, like she's like, oh, the cops, and then like the cops will be like, well, yeah, he has to do X, Y, Z for us to step in, and even then it's only temporary because you know that stuff
Yeah,
is always
and so she's like, F this, I'm gonna learn to box and I'm
and
gonna murder
fight.
him, it's fine.
And then like I remember it's something with, if I'm remembering correctly, it's I only saw it like a few times when it came out. Something with a glass. She like hits him with glass, and like that stuck with me. If it like this, it was like really brutal.
Yeah.
Like, but man, she kicked
She
ass.
wanted to like maim him basically for all the trauma. So it's along the same lines as this, just not quite as brutal
because he's
throughout.
not actually
Yeah.
murdering people yet, but he's on that track.
I'm gonna have to
So-
see that movie.
Yeah, it's a really good one. I thought of that one today when I was just thinking about.
More of a drama
Revenge
than a
movies,
horror
yeah.
under the
Yeah.
tags.
Yeah, so Last House on the Left and I Spit on Your Grave, there literally are scenes where I'm like going to vomit from how much emotion I have because you know me, I can't watch kids, rape scenes. I can't handle all that stuff.
Is the payout when she gets her revenge and fights through it all and shows that strength? Is that worth it to you or no?
So straight up microwaving a dude's head is pretty epic. I'll be honest. However, there's nothing that's gonna recover the emotional turmoil that she's gonna have the rest of her life. Was it like, yeah, fry his head? Like we were all rooting for her in the end.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But you know, if you think about long term and you go beyond just the end, she's going to be a very broken individual, like most survivors.
Much
are.
like the sequels to the remake kind of show, like the third one kind of shows her.
Oh, I Spit on Your Grave?
Yeah, I Spit on Your Grave. It shows her kind of going like straight on Punisher kill mode. Like if she sees anything that even slightly resembles maybe what she went through, she'll, you know. And obviously the guys in the movie, it, you know, shows they deserved it too, for the different reasons. But she sets traps to lure them in so she can commit the violence against them, so she can kind of feel better and like relieve some of that trauma. I think is what they were going for.
Yeah, definitely. So, revenge movies like that. What about Rosemary's Baby is one that comes to mind. We watched one the other night that is kind of along the same line that I want to talk about.
Unsane?
Unsane. It's a really good movie with Claire Foy. But the way that everyone around tries to make the female just seem like she's crazy. Like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're fine. It's nothing. You know, that kind of thing. That kind of mentality. Like in Rosemary's Baby. Any thoughts about that or how that plays into the role or anything?
Well,
Going to you.
with Unsane, she's getting stalked and gets goes to see a psychiatrist for help because she's like, am I going crazy? Is it really this person who's after me? And then it's the hospital makes her sign something, and they're like, oh, it's just routine, just sign it. And then they end up committing her for insurance money and stuff like that, and then she's like, oh, that guy's my stalker. He's my stalker, and he's in the hospital with me. And they're trying to make you think is she crazy, or is the stalker really there with her in this place? And it kind of touches near the end about how it sticks with you too, the trauma and things like that. So it's just another example of that.
I think it's a certain level of crazy that you have to be accused of before you react the way that the characters do to play out the story. So from an entertainment perspective, that's what you want to see. You want to see someone overcome something that you would never do yourself. You know, you would never, you two, at least I can speak for you two, would never make me feel crazy if I was like, this dude is totally following me around, blah, blah, blah. You'd be like, where are you at? I'll take care of this, right? You'll come to my rescue. You wouldn't
You don't
put
need
me
me
down.
to come to your rescue.
No, but you would want to, you know, versus oh, you're being crazy. He just lives next door. It's fine. He may have a telescope, whatever.
He's harmless.
It's fine. That would not be the thing. Whereas in these stories, what makes them entertaining and what makes them amazing is you can identify with the girl being put down so far and pushed so far to the brink of insanity on her own that she has to overcome it. Because you're faced with that all the time. like not being trusted, not being believed, and how do you overcome that? And that's unfortunately what women face every single day, to a whole different capacity and in different situations, obviously, but that's what gets the females to relate so much to those characters. Do I want to stab all the dudes that make her feel that way? For sure. And even the
Absolutely.
women that I'm like, are you kidding me right now? You can't even be there for your fellow sister? Come on now. Get it together. Like, that ticks me off more than the dudes, because I'm like, whatever, y'all are schmucks, but come on.
And another cool thing about Unsane that I just want to touch on, that movie was filmed entirely on an iPhone 7 Plus. Like, that's
Wow.
pretty cool use of technology there.
That's even like old school technology at this
Yeah,
point.
well, it
At
came
this
out a
point.
couple years ago, yeah. The
Um,
movie came out a couple years ago.
But yeah, like, agreeing, like, with the payoffs of, like, the women getting their revenge, like, I'm like, yes, you deserve to have your balls cut off for what you did.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm like, I got so mad watching, like, cause I hadn't seen any of the I Spit on the Graves until we watched the first one. I was like, you mother hubbards, like, you assholes. Like, I'm like, you're, I can't wait to see you get what you deserve.
Right? You're
even
gonna
though
die, sucker.
I'm
Yeah.
like, but going through that, like I've said earlier,
Getting
it's
there is
like,
tough, yeah.
like, I have to, like, close my eyes and, like, walk away sometimes. When we were watching it, I was like, nope, I don't want to see this, because it, like, pisses me off so much.
So, it's funny because there's never the sequel where, like, the girl is actually super strong and she, like, runs a clinic for other battered women and whatever. So, like, you just know how broken the person is, but it's always, like, they continue to fight this boogeyman, this fear, this devil, whatever, because it's going to stick with you. So I like that they don't do that. I wanted to mention that.
It's good. What about movies where the female is the killer?
Like Mrs. Voorhees.
Like the original Friday the 13th, Mrs. Voorhees.
High tension.
High Tension, Urban Legend.
Mm-hmm.
And then even like Jennifer's Body to a different degree. You know, there's a little bit of supernatural elements there and monster elements, but she is still the killer. Megan Fox's character is still the killer. And then
But it was the evil male rock band that wanted to become famous, so they sacrificed her to Satan. That,
True.
Again, deserved it.
yeah.
rock bands.
I just thought that was a neat element too, like, because Jennifer's Body has a lot of, like, feminism stuff woven into it,
Mhm.
which is really good too.
And even like Ginger Snaps.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of, like, I, now being a mom, probably identify more with Miss Voorhees than anything else, because I would be like, listen, all you fools, I'm going to murder you for hurting my child. Don't touch one hair on his head. Like, I'm super protective mom, and so I get that. I mean, granted, she does take it a little far, but they did kill her son, so it's kind of a revenge movie as well, not necessarily just
Different
a
kind of
slasher.
revenge, yeah.
So I identify with that, but it's also not like a young female either. Like, back then, to have a young female murderer is not a thing, because it was seen as like, oh, women are like either mega sluts and good for nothing, or they're like super innocent and there's no like in between. So it would be like unthinkable for a woman to do that. But back then it was absolutely women protect their children, and that was always what was accepted. So I think that's why they could sell that pretty easily.
It was a nice twist back in the day.
Right?
Was it? I
What?
mean,
It's the mom?
if you looked at the poster, it's obviously a female
Well,
instead of a male. That's that outlined. I don't have the poster up. It's
I know, we're
it's,
looking around like,
it's
where?
behind my
What?
Halloween 5 poster. It's obviously a female with the way her body is laid out on the poster, holding the knife.
I never saw that.
Yeah, when they were making the poster, the artist was told to draw a female with a knife. And so it's literally right there, but no one paid any attention, because the thought is a female couldn't be the killer, it has to be a male. So even though the evidence literally is jumping out at you, our mind immediately goes to it's a male killer. There's no possible way a female could be doing this.
I think they could also hide that because the female shape was not like the big breasted, you know, like the mud flap girl outline. I know,
Mud
mud
flap.
flap. So if you think about like,
On trucks.
Oh,
yeah, on the
oh,
trucks, like the
okay.
naked girl with her
Okay.
flowing hair and her leg up, yeah. So I know I got a little descriptive, but it's not that. So we don't, our mind doesn't put those together because it's not the atypical female.
It's a
outline.
mom, yeah. It's,
It's
you know,
absolutely
she has
a
a
mom.
sweater on. And,
It
you
also
know,
You're
depends
like, that
on
could be a feminine dude. Who
where
knows?
where the poster was released, because the Australian version of the original Friday the 13th poster is completely different than the one you have. It's a picture of the pillow with an axe going into a pillow
Yep.
with no, killer.
I was
Australians
talking
would've
about
figured it
the
out.
American poster.
I mean,
Because the Australians
no,
would have figured it out, guys.
The Australians are
They
smarter.
mate were smart. No, but that's the version of the poster I have, is the Australian release. That's why I never really looked that closely at the American version.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So there's also female killers, though, even though they're like trios, in Devil's Rejects.
Mhm.
But she's that is one calculated psycho. I'm gonna be very honest. Like, she's so smart, baby. She's so smart, and she plays dumb so well. And you can't help, like, as we watch the Free from Hell, you can't help but root for her because she's going through so much, and we're just like, ooh, you gonna get it now. Like, you just know it's gonna happen because she's that twisted, but she's also incredibly intelligent, and she plays it off.
Mhm.
That's probably a good example of how it's evolved a little bit
Exactly.
over the years too. Like
Yeah.
Mrs. Voorhees was smart too, because she was like, "Oh hi, I'm just the neighbor lady. I'm friends
For
with
some tea.
I'm friends with the owner. Like,
You can trust me.
And then, but the whole movie, it tries to make you think it's a dude, because it shows like the heavy boots and the, on the gravel.
What was that?
The sound effect on the gravel, the
No.
crunch.
That's how
Crunch.
gravel sounds like.
Well, it's the
Oh my gosh,
on the
leave the
gravel.
poor guy alone. He's
Um,
trying to tell a story here.
And then like they're like, "Oh, it's you," and then like it's never like, "Oh, it's you, lady." It like they always say, and then they get killed.
They're always surprised though. Like,
Yeah.
like, what? It's you? Like, no, it can't be you.
And
But
it
you
catches
never
them
guess
off
that
guard. Yeah,
because you're always surprised when you're about to die.
yeah,
I was thinking it was gonna be Kevin Bacon.
yeah. Or like,
Footloose.
or the crazy Ralph guy, because that leads you to you're all doomed.
All doomed.
Like it could have been him. Most
Yeah.
likely not, because he's really old.
I feel like he was
and-
almost too crazy to be a crazy killer.
Yeah,
Like,
but like
He's not smart
yeah,
it's along
we talk about
those.
Jason being smart.
It's
He's
along those
smart.
veins, though, like somebody like that who is, just a crazy dude out in the woods, and you're not supposed to expect that it could be this character that randomly shows up near the end, and it's like, "Oh, hi, you're in trouble? Let me try to help you." And you're like, "Oh, this lady might be the lady that helps Adrian King get out of the mess," and then it realized, "Oh,
Oh, no.
no."
No.
She's the one
You're
trying to
done.
kill you. So I said ginger snaps. Nobody really commented on that.
I can't remember it. That's
I
fine.
really think it's one of the most like feminist-driven
Werewolf movies.
movies, period, of about last like 25, 30 years. Catherine Isabel stars as a coming-of-age woman who's going through
Changes,
yeah,
growing up.
growing up.
Exactly what's wrong with males in our society here. It's called a period.
She's starting her menstrual cycle.
Okay.
And also becoming a werewolf. And so she's like hungry and going through everything. Everyone's just like, oh, that's just you, and that's just your body, and that's just your hormones, and that's just what you're gonna be like now once a month. And she's like, no, I don't think so. I'm a little bit more hungry for like people, so I don't think this is what I'm gonna be going through every month.
Not wanting a package of
But-
donuts. I want humans.
Yeah, things nobody would listen to her. So what are we thinking about that? Like the coming of age kind of, and still the same thing that we talked about, where everyone's like, no, you're fine. It's just like we were talking about Rosemary's Baby, you're insane. As compared to this one, where it's like, no, that's just your body. You're just hormones. That's just how it is. Kind of the similarities there, right?
It's been a while since I've seen Ginger Snaps. I've seen it a couple of times, but like years ago. But along those lines, it's a good movie, and like Carrie is another example.
Yeah, Carrie is another
Um,
perfect example of that.
Plug it up, Carrie, and then like the teacher tries to help her.
That was great. Thank
Of
you.
course he would say that.
Thank
Well,
you
no.
for quoting that line.
It's a good movie. It's a famous line from that movie. And then like the gym teacher tries to help her, and then the girls are mad, so they pull a prank on her.
Thank you. Spoiler, if you haven't seen Carrie yet, they
Haven't
pull
seen
a
Carrie
prank on
yet,
her.
You probably better figure out your life. So, being raised in a house full of brothers, okay? So, I remember coming home, and this is probably more information than both of you want to know, but I'm going to share because it's pertinent to the story.
Share with us and our audience.
So, I was 6th grade, okay?
6th grade,
So-
maybe like what, 12, 13,
I was 11.
11?
I was
Okay.
a young, like I started at 4 in kindergarten.
Okay.
Okay, so here I am, a 6th grader, coming home to my brothers and my father and my mom, right? My mom is an amazing lady, but she's very much so a tomboy. So coming home, I'm just like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? Like, this is the thing that happens. And of course, like, the school called and was like, hey, so Nicole started her period today. We're going to send her home with pads and like all of the things. And I'm just like, what is happening to me? Like, I had no idea, right? So I get home and my dad's like, oh, you're becoming a woman, and like totally embarrasses me in front of my brothers. My brother's like, ew, that's gross, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, great. So to go through something on top of that, I couldn't imagine. Like, going through that on top of this feeling and this emotion. And women do it every day. Like, we go through domestic violence during that, being beaten as a child, molested as a child, like all of those things that are going on during that. And here we're talking about a girl that's changing as a human, but then also changing into this werewolf. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I would want to eat humans too. I'd be like, F all of you, I'm going to eat you right now. Like, I'm done. You're not supporting me at all. And I think that's part of it, is it's such a stigma, you know. My dad tells a joke, you know, anything that bleeds for 7 days and doesn't die is clearly evil.
Yes,
Which is-
you told me that.
Which
joke,
is a
too.
horrible
I mean,
thing to say.
I've
I
heard
think
that
it's
from other
hilarious
people, too.
now because I'm like, darn straight I am, don't cross me. But that's just me overcoming it, you know, and like being
You
told
have
that
to-
you're crazy and you have to deal with that.
So everything that we've kind of been talking about so far, and you having to overcome things, comes into play there.
Yeah.
Right?
And like, I was not taught how to do any of that stuff. So I'm just like, are you kidding? Great. It's
It's all-
pretty much here. Plug it up, Carrie.
Well, hey,
Is that
hey,
what
I
it
didn't write that.
was?
That was Stephen King.
No, but that was
Uh,
true. That's how it was.
Yeah. And then like another example, you know, of the young girl like coming into adulthood, you know, with the creepy like molesty dad from It. That's a big part
Oh,
of It.
yeah. Beverly.
Beverly, yeah.
Mm.
That's what some of her traumas and stuff she has to go through. So
Yeah.
it's another example on film.
She does not become a werewolf.
Well, no,
No,
because
but
it's
she has
a
to
different
hide that
story.
She
part
has
of her.
to, yeah, she.
And it's her biggest fear is the stuff
Exactly.
that happened in her past.
And that's what Pennywise comes back, you know, and kind of torments her as an adult. And that never really goes away.
Yep.
So, that was fun. What about, like...
Okay, I'm just gonna say this. I really want them to make a coming of age boy story where like they wake up with morning wood and here comes this psycho mom that's like, what the heck are you doing? You're an abomination, blah blah blah, because she doesn't know how to handle it. Like, can we flip the script once? Just for
I'm
me.
really glad that, like, all of our episodes have been, like, PG so far. And then we get Nicole on, and nope, there goes our
Sorry.
PG.
Listen, a good horror movie is a hard R rating.
I agree.
Yeah,
Um,
we all agree on that.
The closest thing to that you're talking about is Mr. Mercedes has
See, I
some.
haven't seen that one.
It's not necessarily exactly the way you
You
described.
haven't even seen it. How do you
Well,
know?
You haven't either, but the first half.
I didn't say I did.
We saw the first half.
So you watched half a movie.
No,
It's a TV show.
Oh,
But
okay.
then-
I was like, what?
But like then DirecTV, there's not an app for the audience channel where it plays, and then they didn't release it on
I
Blu-ray.
figured it out, though. I figured out how to see it.
Yeah, I figured it out too.
Because I told him.
But actually, I
It's
watched it on the
really
phone.
not a competition. So what is this movie about? Because we're
so,
off topic now.
Well, like the kid's got a crazy obsession with his mom, and his mom's crazy obsessed with him, and like that kind of
like,
like
Psycho? Like Bates Motel
a
style?
little bit, but it's more like real, like than like the guy's like, oh, my mom's a cool lady, like so I'll become her.
Oh.
Like that's what Psycho is, but like the mom like molests her son.
I don't know. Bates Motel kind of alludes to that a little bit.
Yeah, maybe,
She, like,
but
passes
that's like the
his
closest
head
thing
all
to like
creepy.
come of age thing, because like this kid's like tormented by his mom, and
Right.
so he kills his brother and ends up then murdering people in a Mercedes. But
Right? Like, I want just, like, one horror movie where, like, the boys will be boys mentality is not at all there. And, like, everything that we think of that's, like, boys will be boys, right? Like, boys are gonna slap the girl's butt and they're gonna idolize women and they're gonna watch pornography and they're gonna do all of these things that we're like, no, don't do that, don't be that way, like be open-minded, right? Like just once for them to exploit all of those dumb things and just murder some dudes instead of like have the woman try to fight for it, because it would be cool to have a guy that's like, no, like you don't believe in the boys will be boys thing, like no, you need to treat everyone with respect. It's not okay to sexualize every female you see just because you think she's cute, right? Like there's more to that, and so I think it would be cool to flip that.
I mean, Jennifer's body is kind of like that. She goes around eating boys that are basically dumb, and you know have that mentality kind of.
The man that does it, like
Oh,
a
so you want-
male figure
okay.
that stands up for that.
Okay.
I'd go see that movie.
Well,
There you go.
If
Get the screenplay done.
Unsane was shot on an iPhone 7 Plus, we have an iPhone 10.
Done.
Let's do it.
Let's do this movie. What about? Now I'm gonna say a movie that you would never think of as a feminist movie. Okay, The Shining. Well, let me stress this though. Okay, you guys looking at me like, huh? Like, how much physical and mental abuse Rindy has to take in that movie, and still she keeps fighting and never gives up because of her son.
Yeah, she definitely goes through that, and you know, she stays in that relationship for her son because she wants to protect him and be there, and she doesn't know how to get out. And he's trying to get better, and he's found a new job, and he's gonna go away to the mountains and become sober and not like, you know, struggle with his abusive alcoholism and all that. So I can see it.
I think, and The Shining is definitely one of my favorite movies for sure, but it like highlights how much women are very emotionally driven, right? Like we want to believe in the good in people. Otherwise, why in the F would you go to a remote mountain hotel thing with a psycho drunk, right? Because she wants to believe in the good in him. She wants to do all of those things, but at the end of the day, she's going to pick her son over her husband. Like that's going to happen. We as women always pick our children. Sorry.
I expect you
I
to.
pick you both, but I, would pick my son over an abusive husband, right? But I'm just like, man, it just shows all of the emotional attachment that we have and how we have such a hard time letting go of that because we want to believe in the good in people. And if you don't want to believe in the good in people, then you end up just kind of being a psycho anyway.
Like that.
I mean, that is
That sums
really
it up.
on point
Okay.
to The Shining.
I do like that movie.
Although, I will say,
Oh, rebuttal.
no, it's not a rebuttal. It's just an add-on. Shelley,
addition to.
the actress who played Wendy in the Stanley Kubrick version of The Shining, I feel bad
Got
for
treated
her
like crap.
because Stanley
Stanley
Kubrick is a
Kubrick.
prick,
Yeah.
and like he like emotionally scarred her while making that movie, and that's one of the reasons why, even though I might sometimes watch that version, I rarely do, and it's not my favorite.
If you're looking for a good Shining movie, watch the 1997 TV miniseries.
With Steven Weber.
Steven Weber. That is my favorite version of The Shining. Ask Ian. I still get terrified when the hedge animals come on.
I mean, it sticks to the story, and none of the actresses were treated emotionally or physically.
Rebecca
during that
J.
I
show.
think
Mornay
that
is
literally-
Rindy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Man, I think that literally like speaks to the fact that we want to do something good and we want to be involved and we want so much as women to be accepted that we're willing to put ourselves at risk. Like as much as this is gonna sound bad, but she signed up for this role and this part and this piece of it, not knowing what she was getting herself into, and then once you're in it, how do you escape that when you really just want to do something good and you want to pay your bills and feed your children and do all of that stuff? So it's oftentimes that we're like, yeah, this is going to be great. I'm going to show how amazing this role is going to be, or this thing that I'm taking on, or planning this demo for karate or whatever. And then you're just like, what in the hell did I get myself into? How do I get out of this? And now I'm scarred for life because I'm emotionally attached to things. I think it's more so with women than it is men.
Another good example of feminism in a horror movie, John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. During the beginning of the movie, before they go to the church where they're going to study the the objects that they don't know anything about because like they're college students and then they get signed on for this class. Like there's this like pompous like, hey, I'm the macho dude, and he's like hitting on the lead actress in the movie. He's like blah blah blah, and he says some like really bad like suggestive things, and she's like, no, hey, I'm a smart lady, you know, I'm not interested.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh hey, I'm sorry, you know, like, and he like immediately switches gears, and he's like, oh let's just like work together and be cool. And then like eventually they date a little bit in that movie, but that like struck me as another interesting example.
Yeah, this guy, I've forgotten about that.
I think people forget sometimes that it's okay to say, stop, I don't like this, I'm not okay with this, and expressing that. I express it to you all the time, all the things that I don't like. But it takes a very strong person to do that and have confidence in themselves, and I love that scene from there.
It
I'm like, yeah, she just told you, fool, and then it was like, oh, now you can be a civilized human, and I can get to know you, and you don't have to be seen that way.
And it doesn't matter how small it is, if it's making you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Say no. You know,
Yeah.
like, hey,
Right.
if it's someone hitting on you, just say no, hey, like that scene.
Yeah, it's in the very beginning of the movie too, and like
Mhm.
that stuck out as
Right.
one of
Oh.
the big scenes from that movie.
Can I ask you guys a question? Because this is like the perfect time, because we talk about the exploitation of women all the time, because it's been such a normalized thing for so long, and all of us ladies are real fed up, right? But I'm gonna be honest, we absolutely exploit men too. Like, I won't lie, you give me some Magic Mike, I'm like, hey, how's it going, right? Like, those types of shows are still out there, and while as much as I want to be like, yeah, women, we're amazing, I'm just like, can we not be a-holes to dudes too? Like, can we just stop it all?
I don't know.
So does that make
the
you
magic,
feel weird?
The magic mics are few and far between, I think.
Yeah,
I-
but there's
in
always the
comparison,
brooding
yeah.
guy, right?
It's
That
there.
like hits
It's
on the
there,
girl,
yeah.
or like the moron dude that just wants to get drunk and have sex with girls. Like, there's all of those things that, if you're a stand-up guy, aren't really things that you're okay with.
I mean, the thing that makes me probably the most upset with that stereotype is like the dumb father, the dumb dad that doesn't know how to take care of his kid, or like is never there for his kid, always missing games and
Right.
stuff. And then when he does spend time with them, he's like, "Oh my God, a baby! What do I do with this, honey, honey, baby?" Like,
Right, or the diapers like duct
yeah,
taped
like
on.
really, like as a father, I feel like I'm a pretty good dad.
You are a
Like
good
I
dad.
feel like I can handle things that happen. You know, I'm not gonna call you every single time. You know, something happens. Like I do. I feel like I can do a good job with that, and so that kind of bugs me. And yeah, it's because that is the typical male stereotype, right? It's,
Or the geeky nerdy one who's like, oh, hello, I don't know how to talk to girls, and hey, that's,
Just kidding.
you know, like, and then they're always like, oh, I'm so nerdy, and then they end up like walking into like a laser fence or like a
Right,
barbed
you're
wire
either
fence
like
or
a moron or
Yeah.
too smart to function.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like, what? So,
like
I
Tucker
think
and
that
Dale
there's a
versus Evil.
partnership.
He's like, I don't know how to talk to girls, and then the whole like everyone's
That's
killing
amazing
themselves
to
on our
me.
property. Like I mean, that's probably a good example.
There's a good example of how the
of,
guys
like,
are
the
trying to be
stand-up
good.
guys.
Yeah, the stand-up guys,
Yeah,
Tucker and Dale.
versus evil, and the evil is the crazy guy who hates
I've heard they're
hillbillies.
trying to make a sequel to that.
I would love that.
Oh my goodness, that would be incredible. We
Yeah.
got a sequel to Tucker and Dale.
He's like, oh, how do I talk to girls? And then Alan Tudyk is like, just go be yourself, buddy. And he goes over there with a giant sickle, and he's like, that's
But they're
not a
just
good way.
they're really genuinely trying to be nice and help them. But because of the stereotype that is given out there, everyone just assumes, oh my goodness, these guys must be trying to kill them or hurt them or
Well-
sexually assault them, whatever
well,
it may be.
well, it doesn't help when the kids suicide themselves all over their property.
Right.
How do you convince them that you're not?
I'm not killing them. They just happen to fall on that
They
night.
just happen
It's
to
cool.
jump into a wood chipper.
Right. It's fine.
So we can, I don't feel like we can. Okay, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I haven't seen this movie. I don't know if you guys have or not. Okay, but I don't feel like we could do a feminism and horror movie segment without at least talking a bit about teeth.
I haven't seen it, but I'm
Is that the movie where the vagina has
Yeah.
teeth?
That is it.
Okay.
And
I've never seen it.
Who directed that movie?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know. I'd
Okay,
have to
well,
look it
I'm
up.
gonna need to know, because that dude is a moron, or that lady is a moron.
It's probably a dude.
Well, it's a real thing. It's a real medical condition.
I understand, but don't exploit craziness. No. That's like taking a poor child with Down syndrome, not poor child, because they're pretty amazing people, but taking someone with Down syndrome and exploiting that for money. Like, first of all, can you lay off of the weird stuff that can happen to my vajayjay? Like, I'm just gonna be honest. Like, do I have teeth on my vagina?
What is
No.
this becoming?
Well, you brought it up. I'm just saying. So it's not like, you know, they made a movie about a dude's stuff that's bent in half and it's just how it is. Like, that doesn't happen. Or the micro version. I'm sorry, there's things that can happen, but you don't need to make a movie about it.
I'm trying to think if there is
I feel
one
like
about that.
of all movies, that one just did not need to be made. I would rather watch Zombieverse than that one. And you know how much I hate that
Zombieverse
one.
was
Zombieverse is amazing. I love that movie.
It's
But like, no, just no.
Okay, I had to bring it up.
Just
I had to
no.
bring
Is
teeth
my
up in
only
this
answer
segment.
to that.
I just thought of a sci-fi movie that kind of goes along some of these same veins.
Mm-hmm.
Species. It's a sci-fi movie
Mhm.
about an alien, and the only way she can like continue to evolve and like her mission is to impregnate the human species, and it's a bunch of scientists hunting her. Like that's
But does she make their vaginas have teeth?
well, that's different. It's a sci-fi, not horror.
I feel like it belongs in the sci-fi world. Like,
But like, it's along those lines too.
Yeah.
And as soon as she does, like, then she's automatically pregnant.
Mm.
Like within like 30 seconds, and the kid's coming out in like a minute.
listen, I enjoyed being pampered during my pregnancy, so I don't know about this 30-second thing, because you took really good care of me, so I would need my 10 months of that.
But that's like
Or 40 weeks of
another
that.
genre that has some of that
Yeah,
stuff in there.
Definitely.
you didn't have to bring up that one.
I felt like I did. I felt like I had to bring it
So
up.
you could, okay, if we're being realistic, you could look at it as it's something that, because if you think about what makes a woman, that's part of it, right? It's the genetic part of it, but it's like the realization that that can be their strongest weapon. Like, you can manipulate a dude real well with that if they're not a good person, let's be honest, right? You can take over certain things by utilizing that tool and that weapon. So it was smart in that aspect, but probably not the best way to portray it.
I mean, you can definitely, like you said, like, even in Unsane, the girl is offering something sexually in exchange for something that she needs, and the guy just automatically, without thought, okay, here you go. Like, you know, when something like that is offered in the movies and stuff, it's pretty much without hesitation that the male will agree to it.
Mm-hmm. Does that speak to how dumb your species is?
A little bit, yes.
Or at least how
Just
it's
kidding.
portrayed in films.
Right.
Like Keanu Reeves in Knock Knock, he tries.
Oh, Knock Knock
As
is
a
a great
good
movie,
example,
yeah.
his wife and kid go out of town for the kid's birthday. He's got to finish a little bit of work, and then he's gonna go join them. But two like beautiful-looking women show up on his door, and it's raining. Like, oh, our cab's away. Can we come in? It's cold. And he's trying to be nice, but then like eventually he succumbs to their seductions, and then they torture the crap.
And he
out of
tries. He tries so hard not to. Like, he's
Yeah.
like, no, I have a right. If I'm married,
He's like, no, please
you guys
leave.
gotta go.
They like come out and they're like naked, and he's like, whoa, put something on, and then like, I'll call you a cab. He calls him a cab, and then they like send it away, like, and then he's, you know, then they just start kissing him, and he's like, oh shit, I can't stop this, and I've tried so hard to get rid
You
of you.
better stop this.
Oh no, they're kissing me. I have been powerless now.
I am paralyzed.
Like eventually he just gives in to the constant barrage of peer pressure and gives in, and then they torture him for
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's his fault he eventually gave in, but he tried in the beginning, like, to get rid of him and be like, get out of here, I'm married. They're like, oh, is this your wife and kid? Oh, yeah.
At least they didn't kill his dog.
So, along those same lines,
John Wick.
my goodness. So, along those same lines, can we talk about the faculty? Not the faculty. What's the one? Is that it? Where, like,
The aliens?
Yeah, it's like the super sweet Southern belle girl that, like, is really manipulating everybody, and she's an alien creature. What is that movie? I think it's got Josh Hartnett in it.
Faculty.
Faculty. Okay, see, I was right. I just don't trust myself because y'all know way more horror movies than I do.
Jon
But, like,
Stewart.
You had me at Hartnett.
Hartnett.
And Jon Stewart.
He is for sure one of my faves.
Huh?
Jon Stewart from The Daily Show was in that
Is he in the
movie.
faculty?
Yeah, he's one of the teachers.
Oh, I've missed that.
Oh, we're gonna have to watch it again. But like, how perfect is that? Because back in the day when it was like
The
Halloween and like all of those things, and then here we hit the 90s, and now it's this sweet innocent one that is deceiving us and is actually going to be the one that tries to murder us, right? And so I think that's a good like script flip a little bit there.
And probably one of the leaders, if we don't have that movie, we might not get some of the other female-driven killers that we got later on after that we've talked about already in the show.
Yeah, I think that movie definitely exploited, you know, how easy it is to manipulate men, right? But then also how easy it is for you to manipulate women if you portray as their friend. And we can be some pretty big backstabbers at the end of the day. And so I think it showcases both sides of that very well.
The last movie that I really had on my mind that I wanted to talk about was The Descent.
A bunch of hikers and rock climbers.
All
go out-
female cast.
Yeah, they go to a mountain.
They descend.
Yeah,
Into
mountain,
a cave.
Oh,
yeah.
did we see that together?
It was before I met you. It came out in 2005, I believe.
I mean, you still could have watched it after that.
Well,
But
I mean, yeah, we could have watched it together. I don't know, but it came out. It came out in 2005, I believe.
Is it like Red? The cover of the movie Red?
mostly,
I think so.
Like they go into a cave and
It's
there's
a
like
group
all
of
the
female
extra-
friends.
Oh.
They're lesbians. They're all together with each other, which is my next point and what I wanted to make. Like an all-female-led cast that happen to be gay. How much did that do for the genre? Nothing. Ian's like, it didn't do anything.
I'm not saying it's bad, but I don't think it hurt it. And
Well, do you think it helped it though? Do you think
maybe not horror movies specifically, but it probably has helped other things.
What do you think the intention was of making them gay?
Well, I think it was one of the first times that a big horror movie, or I don't know about a regular movie in general, maybe had an entire cast like that. So I think it was
An entire cast of females or an entire gay
both,
female cast?
both.
So, but did it have to do both, I guess is the question.
Did it
that
have
I
to?
have for
Well,
you.
they were
Could it
in
have been just
relationships
as
with each other.
impactful if it was all just a group of ladies that maybe weren't romantically
I don't
involved with
think
each
I don't
other?
think it could have, because you cared about the couples, you cared about the relationships, and if someone from the relationship was passed away or something,
Passed
Yeah.
away? You mean murdered by evil cannibalistic
Passed
monsters?
away.
Yes.
You descended to your hell.
Yeah.
No, so I think you're right, because when you portray an all-female cast back in 2005 even, because this is our life these days, if there wasn't an added emotional attachment, it probably wouldn't have sold as much. Like, it would not have been the show that everybody wanted to go see, because there's no emotional drive, right? Like in most slasher horror movies, there's a love interest of some sort, even if it's not really talked about a lot. Like all the way back to Freddy in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Nancy and
And
her best
Glenn.
friend. Yeah.
Johnny Depp.
Johnny
Yeah.
Depp.
Like you're supposed to care about her and her
Right, you
boyfriend.
care about that relationship.
and her
So,
friends, yeah.
did it have to? Probably not. But did it in order to show that these are strong, independent women that don't need anything else? But we need that romantic attachment. We need that emotional attachment to really be
So that way you
involved
fall
in
in
the
love
story.
with the character.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't like the character, like the douchey guy who's like, yeah, I'm the evil asshole guy, and then like you don't care if he gets his head cut off by someone, because he's just the asshole who's like, fuck all you people, like.
Right?
I'm gonna be the worst person in this
I love
movie.
your
This is Ian trying to be like the meanest he can be.
No, I
Well, it's true though.
yeah, like,
But
yeah.
like you want to root for all of them because they're all in it together, kind of thing. You can say that about movies like Stand By Me. You root for the group of kids. You root for the group of individuals.
'Cause you're
But
emotionally-
you're emotionally attached to it. So in 2005, that was the thing. Like, let's showcase something that these women are strong and they are amazing and they are doing this crazy thing and they're going to be faced with all these fears, but they still have each other and they still have those romantic ties as well.
And you brought up Nightmare on Elm Street again. That has a lot of other things with feminism too. Like her mom's an alcoholic, and she's calling like Nancy crazy. in that one scene where she gets the REM brain scan, and then she comes back, she's like, I pulled the hat out of my dream. Am I really crazy? Look at this. Like, you're calling me crazy, and I have the evidence here in my hand. Well, you just want to drown your problems in alcohol, and she, like, smashes the mom's alcohol. So that's, like, another thing, like, an example of...
If you haven't noticed, his favorite movie, Nightmare on Elm Street.
And followed by Scream, which is another Wes Craven movie as well. And then, like, she's, like, trying to save her boyfriend. She's like, hey, you got to stay awake. You got to do this so I can do what I have to do. Like, we have to, like, team up and get this, but then he can't follow through and gets geysered. And then, like... Yeah, like, the bed. That was the movie they used the most blood back in the time, but it's probably since been...
With movies like
I think it's Piranha now.
Yeah,
Piranha 3D.
That one's rough.
Might have been beaten by that, but then she's like booby-trapped the house and gonna take on Freddy herself because no one else is alive to help her and believes her. So she's like, I'm gonna make you
like
believe.
the original Home Alone. Like, I'm gonna murder this crazy person in my dreams. So, I think it addresses a lot of things. You know, like when you're a single parent, whether you're the mom or the father, the relationship you have with your child is so vital and so important. And then when you bring alcoholism into it on top of that, and now people legitimately think she's crazy. She'd be looking crazy by about the half of that end of that movie, because she's literally driving herself insane because nobody believes her. She's felt like she's in it on her own, and she's always been alone because of how her mom is. And so it's like, you know, kind of like what I talked about before. You push them to the brink of where they start believing they're insane until they just snap, and we go into straight on survival mode. It's like the mom that can lift a car off of her child because we get that adrenaline rush, that survival instinct kicks in. And that's exactly what happens in that movie. She says, come here, Freddy, I'll show you my nightmare.
And Johnny Depp's character does believe her a little bit. He's like, look, this is some research I figured out, but he just can't stay awake.
Not enough hypnosis.
That's in later movies.
Wasn't there yet. We needed that. Did you know that Nightmare on Elm Street was the first horror movie I ever saw?
I did not.
Ever.
I'm not surprised. I know how much you love Freddy Krueger
Mm-hmm.
and how much you're scared of him.
I was real little. When did that movie come out?
84.
Yep.
Yeah, so I was really little. Like, every time someone mentions it, I just immediately go back to the night that I couldn't sleep.
The first movie I saw, the first horror movie that I remember seeing was The Shining when I was 10.
That was the first Stephen King book I read.
And there was the TV miniseries. There was not the big movie. There was the miniseries with Steven Weber. Probably why I'm scared of the hedge animals.
Probably.
I had to go in the hallway for that. For anything scary, my mom would be like, go in the hallway, you can't see this.
He almost did, he got up and walked away from the couch when we were watching it last year. When Steven Weber was going to be at Crypticon, and then he ended up having to cancel. Like, I had never seen the TV version up until that point. Like, the hedge animal's up, and he's sitting here on the couch, which is in front of us, by the way. And he gets up off the couch and has to walk away.
The hedge animals come to life and they kill you. Instead of the maze that's in the Kubrick version,
really
it's the hedge animals.
And I was like, really? You're walking away from 90s CGI?
How did I not know this about you? Yeah. I wouldn't have pulled the bushes out of front. I would have totally carved some animals first. I would have had to torture you.
It looks so stupid now because it's not only is it 90s CGI, it's
90s,
TV 90s CGI, and so it is horrible looking. But still, can't do it. That hippo or whatever it is coming for me.
Maybe that's why I don't sleep well in my dreams. Like, that's just something that's always terrified me as a kid. Was Freddy.
I was gonna say hedge animal hippos.
No,
okay.
Freddy Krueger.
Oh, okay.
I'm changing the subject back. Sorry.
He's not real. You just have to look him in the eyes and tell him he's not real, and he'll go away.
You're not real.
Poof! I'm gone.
Dang it! It didn't work.
I take away your power.
Any final thoughts on the topic before we close out?
I think we've pretty much nailed everything.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of things here.
Or the issues. We discussed all the issues.
Yep, I hope they continue to progress in what they're doing. But I think for the time frame to have a girl survive that long ago is amazing, and it just does keep better.
I just thought of something. sorry to slightly interrupt at the end there,
Interrupter.
but I
No,
wanted
it's okay,
to
go ahead.
wanted to remember. You're Next is another good example of a female who breaks the initial stereotypes. Like, yeah, she's dating this guy, and then they go out to their family's house out in the woods, and a bunch of killers show up, and you got like the ditzy like type who's like and then all the female like basic stereotypes around, like
Yeah.
The great Barbara Crampton is in that
Barbara
movie.
Crampton. And then like everyone else, like you got the a-hole brother who's like, F you, I hate you, brother. And then you got the boyfriend who's like nerdy, artistic movie guy. And they pick on him for being the nerdy guy when they're all sitting around the table. Like the a-hole brother's like picking on the girl's boyfriend for his job and stuff. He's like, oh, you're a filmmaker? And like making fun of him. But the point I'm trying to get at is the survivor in that movie is smart. She's had tactical training, and you're not supposed to expect it because it doesn't tell you any of this until the movie happens.
And
the reveal.
she says the best finishing line of any movie ever.
I stuck his head in a blender and killed him, because like he's like, oh, who's dead? And she's like, no, I stuck his head in a blender and he's dead. And it's like she's strong, survivalist, and like smarts. In the end, wins the day. It doesn't matter what you look like, smarts.
Right. So.
Sorry, go ahead. Well, I was thinking, you say it doesn't matter what you look like or whatever, anything, it just matters how smart you are, you can survive. Another movie kind of like that, and more in the last 5 years, I think, was Hush. With, what's her name? From The Haunting of Hill House. Kate Siegel.
Yeah.
She's deaf and completely isolated in a house in the wilderness, and there's a masked intruder killer trying to get into her house and try to break in. Talk about being at a disadvantage. What's great about that movie, though, you talked about the directors and filmmakers and how they portray things at the very beginning of this, right? They never portray her as a weak victim who's helpless, because not only is she a woman, but she is deaf. So they never portray that. It's just the character. And she's an incredibly strong character and incredibly smart and able to survive.
So, help me with the name of the movie where it's like the lady gets married and she has to go through like this game with the relatives. Ready or Not.
I love that movie.
The one that just came out this past year. Yes.
That movie is amazing because you literally do. Like, I love you, but when you get married, you have no freaking clue what you are getting yourself into.
I really did not.
No, he didn't. But, like, you don't know what you're getting. This is not a joke. No, I'm just kidding. So, but, like, really, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. You don't know what to expect. You always want to please the family, and you want them to like you, and you want to portray all of that. And she's, like, it's halfway through, and it's like, F this. I'm a murder all of you fools.
I'm
like,
done with this.
I'm done. She, like, rips her wedding dress, which mine is still in a bag, and I'm like, why do I have that? Like, it's a thing that you wear to unite yourself, but then she's like, nope, this is about survival, and she puts on her sneakers. Her Chuck Taylors, and she's like, listen, I'm about to be done. This old school mentality you have with your creepy lifestyle and your games that you play, I'm done.
And you're murdering me for
This
fun.
is much better than what I said about it on our top 10 list.
I mean,
oh, good movie.
I mean,
well, you just
I probably should have ranked it a little higher myself, but in the heat of the moment, I was like, it's number 10, but it probably would have been a little
What was
higher.
it on 5? I think it was 5th on mine.
Maybe.
Something like that.
Like I said, it was number 10, but it should have been higher for me.
Cool.
like, I think that's more of like
Awesome.
a good
In-laws.
feminist movie now. Because, a lot of women want that happily ever after, and a lot of women don't give a crap about that. They just want to be happy. And then you can see how it backfires, but she stands up for herself, and the husband's like, I'm so sorry, we don't have to do this, we could have just eloped, blah, blah, because he knows what's coming. But, like, you beat around the bush because you're also in fear of your family as the husband. I'm like, holy cow. Plus, there's some really sweet kill scenes in that movie.
There. It's really good.
And it has the best one-liner to go along with that when she's just like, in-laws.
In-laws, I love you.
I always hear people complaining about in-laws, not you, but everybody
Oh, yeah,
I've
you
ever
do.
met is like,
Don't try
the
not to get me in
in-laws.
trouble.
Everybody complains about their in-laws at some point. I love my in-laws, but there are things that we just don't see eye to eye with. Same thing with
Same.
you.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I think that's true because it's like, oh, I hate my in-laws. I have to go, blah blah blah. And you and I are like, and it's not that big of a deal. Like we'll get through.
We make it
It's
work.
fine.
Yeah. Thank you so much
My
for
in-laws are not
jumping
murdering.
on. What?
My in-laws are not murdery, thank God.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank goodness. for
I'm
that.
glad neither of you are serial killers. Also,
That you know of. Thank you so much to
I
Nicole
buried the body
for
for you,
jumping on the episode with us and talking about feminism and getting your viewpoints of things. I think it was really helpful and really eye-opening to us, as well as hopefully to you guys out there. Before we go, we have a funny little thing here. If you've seen the other videos, you know that at the end of the episode, we go, do you have a cool sign-off yet? And we go, no, not yet. Well, I think we do now, okay?
oh no, don't
And
do it.
it comes back
Please
to.
don't do
I'm
anything
going.
weird.
Oh, I'm going to.
Oh, boy.
It
I
comes
gotta go.
back. My birthday.
No.
No, you're staying there.
Oh, I know what this is.
It comes to my birthday was on Saturday. Today's Monday, so it's just a couple days ago. And Ian and my dad and myself are at the table, and we're eating cake at the end of the night. And Nicole, my mom, and our son were in the
The
living room
cake was
playing.
epic. Nailed it.
Yeah, the cake was very good. So Ian and I were talking about how Barbara Crampton is going.
No. Let me tell you how it first started. We're telling dad jokes.
Well,
And
yeah,
Nicole
the dad jokes.
told a hilarious joke about French fries not being made in France, they're made in Greece. Bazinga. Well, anyway, so that
Other than
Talk
yours.
about good one-liners.
sparked.
Barbara Crampton.
Yeah, that sparked the light bulb in my head. I'm like, oh, Barbara Crampton, she's going to be at Crypticon. And
They're trying to French fry
They're trying to
us
French fry us when they're crawling through the air duct.
in shopping mall.
I thought that would be
In
a
Greece.
perfect thing to get signed on, a chopping mall thing, and as well as from some of the other movies. she's
So
been
we
in.
start talking about
I'm
that.
like,
We start talking about Barbara Crampton.
That's all I say.
And my dad, who's obviously never heard of Barbara Crampton, stops
Thought I
eating
was
his
kidding.
cake and looks at Ian after he says her name and is like, Barbara Crampton? What is that?
He's like, that's a joke.
That's
I'm like,
our dog.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not joking. He's like, you're joking. That's not a real person. And he keeps going on and on.
All through the night now.
random stuff. And then he comes up behind me as some point in the night and he's like, Barbara Crampton's watching you. I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Are
And
you
then
picking him up?
Yeah, it's our dog.
and then
Hey,
things
dog.
like
Our
that.
doggo
So
wanted to be on.
I don't know what you're getting at.
So, no.
So Barbara Crampton.
Yeah. So I think our
Real
sign
person,
off
not
Real
fictional.
person.
she's a real person.
Fantastic actress.
One of my all-time favorite actresses. And
Looking
yes,
for-
we're going to be able to meet her. Hopefully, she doesn't have anything come up to
Cancel.
cancel. But we'll be able to meet her at Crypticon this year in Kansas City. But I think from now, our sign-off will be, Barbara Crampton. Always remember, Barbara Crampton is watching you. Okay?
I'm not involved in this anymore.
Thank you for this input into our YouTube channel, Dad. You had no idea what you were doing there.
Does he ever?
No.
Oh, he did once.
One time.
So, on 3, okay, you get to join in with us,
The
okay?
first time ever.
First
You want
time
me to say
ever, this-
Barbara Crampton is watching.
Yes, always remember.
I'm sorry, Barbara
Okay.
Crampton, for this that's happening right now.
On 3, okay?
She'll
Our
probably
very
never see
first
this.
sign off. Let's hope not.
Or if she does, hopefully she's a good spirit about it.
I think she has a good
Because she's
sense
a
of humor.
fabulous actress.
On 3, 1, 2, 3. Always remember,
Barbara
Barbara Crampton is watching you.